I'm Dennis Neal. I'm a journalist, and I'll be your moderator for this panel. And we want to talk about, well, the official title is the tech revolution, but what we really want to talk about is tech destruction and internet destruction. At what point does creative destruction that 20th century economist Schumpeter talked about, at what point is it indiscriminate destruction? At what point are we wiping out industries almost unnecessarily? And we've got a perfect panel that the Milken folks have assembled for that. And I'm really looking forward to this. Now, we've got to my far right, Mark Benioff of Salesforce.com. He is sort of the great disruptor of the software industry. I met him only 6 months after he'd founded the company. He said, we want to sell software just by the seat instead of these enterprise-wide licenses. And I had a bold prediction. Oracle will crush you. Didn't happen. So we've got Mark Benioff. And then next to him, Steve Case of AOL Time Warner, the architect of that merger that didn't go that well. And Steve is kind of an example of the greatly disrupted. And yet, he managed to hold on to a few pennies after the collapse of that deal. And he now invests in disruptive technology because he wants to do to others what the internet did to him. And then we've got a great academic, Vivek Wadhwa, who actually was an entrepreneur, founded companies. And then, like 10 years ago or so, at age 46, he has a heart attack. And he decides that if he's going to survive, he's got to escape into the ivory tower. So Vivek is here to kind of watch all this destruction and maybe keep these two guys honest. Thanks for being with us, gentlemen. So let's just start with a quick question, and we'll start with Mark Benioff. At what point do you think this creative destruction, Mark, actually turns to a dark side of indiscriminate destruction? Are we there yet?
Well, thank you, Dennis, and it's good to see you again. I'll tell you how I think about this, which is that, in our industry, people are always overestimating what you can do in a year and underestimating what you can do in a decade. That just seems to be the human nature. But what is really happening is that technology itself is a continuum. It's constantly getting lower cost and easier to use. And the future is always unimaginable. There's always a few people who get it right, but the vast majority of us tend to get it wrong, because trying to actually be able to see and figure out what's really coming is so fantastical that we kind of have to take a step back and go, let's just try to figure out how to kind of get ourselves there. I like to say that in many ways it's the most successful people in our industry find that it's tactics that dictate their strategy over time. It's being able to kind of put these things together as they're emerging, and guided by these kind of truisms that we know, things like Moore's Law, are going to show us a way that we are going to be able to move forward.
Okay, and yet, Steve Case, it seems like if you had to count all the jobs that tech has created since, I don't know, either the dawn of the World Wide Web in '93 or the advent of the IBM PC, say in 1980, do you think the tech's created more jobs or destroyed more jobs?
Well, I think it's destroyed more jobs. It's created a lot of jobs both directly for the companies and indirectly through the platforms. A company like eBay has hundreds of thousands of different providers that are creating businesses on that platform. We backed a company called BigCommerce in the e-commerce space. They have 50,000 different people that are in the global e-commerce market, employing hundreds of thousands of people, even though that company only has 300 people. So I think in general, the technology has been a disruptor and has done things in a more efficient, innovative way. And in many instances, that has resulted in job loss. But I think it's worth taking a step back because 250 years ago, America was a startup. The reason now we're the leader of the free world is because we built the largest economy. The reason we have the largest economy is we've been the most innovative entrepreneurial nation for the last 250 years. First in the agricultural revolution, then in the industrial revolution, obviously more recently in the digital revolution. At the peak of the agricultural revolution, Mike Milken was showing this slide the other day, 98% of jobs in this country were in the agricultural sector. Now, and 2% were other. Now it's 2% ag, 98% other. So you saw this growth in ag, then it declined, and the growth in sort of this whole industrial revolution, then it started to decline, things like manufacturing. Now you're seeing growth in the digital space, but the growth is not the same in terms of job creation. It is a matter of concern. It ties in with a lot of the opportunity gap and other things we should talk about.
Okay. Vivek, sometimes I get the feeling, though, that tech guys keep forcing this new stuff on us, not because we're dying for it. Oh, my iPhone is too slow. I need it to be a few seconds faster. They force it on us because they can, and they just want a product upgrade cycle. What do you say?
That's true, but right now everything is in hyperdrive. It's not the tech guys who are driving it anymore. It's two kids in a garage somewhere, anywhere in the world that can build a world-changing technology and disrupt. You know, what happened over the last few years is that computing power increased to the point that this little device over here is more powerful than the Cray supercomputers were. Remember those Cray supercomputers? Export restrictions, the US considered them proprietary. We ran weather programs on them. Remember those computers?
Yes.
Right? This is more powerful than those Cray supercomputers were. And anyone, anywhere can buy these. You have beggars in India who go around with smartphones now, supercomputers.
Right.
So what this has made possible is a technology revolution that's going to eclipse these guys. Mark may have been the big disruptor, but he's going to be the big disrupted at the pace which things are changing.
Yes, Mark, what do you say on that?
It could happen. I mean, the reality is, you know, technology is a continuum. It's constantly getting lower cost and easier to use. So you have to constantly be disrupting yourself. You constantly have to be creating new opportunity, new businesses, new ideas, and companies that try to stay too long on their technology paradigm. And specifically, when we talk about that, we should say their business paradigm or their technical paradigm, their competitive paradigm. That's Clayton Christensen's beautiful work called The Innovator's Dilemma, if you read that book. You know, that idea that you have got to be constantly recreating yourself. Another way to think about it is Jeff Moore's work and his follow-on work after Crossing the Chasm is his escape velocity work, where he talks about moving from Horizon 1, which is where the innovator starts, to Horizon 2, which is kind of the next place where you have to get to Horizon 3, and then Horizon 4, and Horizon N. It keeps continuing. So you have to be ready as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a visionary, as a provocateur, to keep going, you know, to keep the pace of change. The ones who have problems are the ones who lose what I would say a beginner's mind. You know, we all start as entrepreneurs. Steve's a great example. You know, he's one of my role models in starting my own company. You start by asking, what is possible? How is it possible? What is the technology that we have today that we did not have before? So therefore, what can we do now? And you have a beginner's mind. You have to cultivate that beginner's mind. The people who have problems are the ones who lose that beginner's mind. Maybe they get too much market share, too much competitive price capability. Microsoft is a great example. Right. Their biggest issue in the last 10 years is they lost their beginner's mind.
Right.
Maybe now with a new CEO, they get a new beginner's mind, but they have to regain their beginner's mind.
All right, a couple takeaways there for you folks. First of all, I think that Mark just said that Steve Case is a lot older than he is, role model. And second,
that's factually accurate.
If someone will please just check the after hours trading of Salesforce.com shares, because Vivek just said that Salesforce could get hurt next, and Mark said, yeah, could happen. So I just want to see how Wall Street might react to that. Steve, does Mark need to move his company over to all apps to stop from being himself?
Well, I think 2 points. One is what made Wayne Gretzky such a great hockey player is he didn't focus on where the puck was, he focused on where the puck was going. And that's a key. It ties in with the sort of the beginner's mind, the perspective on where things are going, and just position yourself before that. And I have learned, and some of it was the rise of and then the decline of AOL, what you referenced in a snarky way at the beginning of our conversation. When we started, 1985, only 3% of people were online. So we said we wanted to get America online. We helped get America online. It was a fast-growing company and the best-performing stock of the decade in the 1990s. We started as a disruptor. We started as an attacker. We were challenging the status quo. As we got larger, it went from dozens of people to hundreds of people to thousands of people, and after the merger with Time Warner, 90,000 people. We shifted from being an attacker to being more of a defender. And there are big debates in the company about communication services. Well, we want cable to do that, and the scale actually became a problem. So I realized watching that arc that the businesses really are divided into these two camps, attackers and defenders. There are examples of large companies, certainly in the tech space. Yeah, Apple and Google, I think, have done this pretty well. In some Fortune 500 companies, like GE, has done some interesting things. So it's possible, but most companies, when they get scale, shift, and it's less about what's possible, maximizing the opportunity. It's
And
more about
protecting.
minimizing the downside. And most of the people running these large companies, I'm sure some are in the room, I don't mean this with any disrespect, are generally trained by business schools to manage risk and kind of de-risk situations. Entrepreneurs come at it a different way. They're just trying to swing for the fences and maximize opportunity. And the question is, how do you strike that right balance? And it goes back to what we said at the beginning.
And those are two management paradigms that he's really, articulating very, very well. But these are also very much, mindsets,
Right.
and corporate mindsets. And then you get groupthink in your company. If you get groupthink in your company that you're a defender, you got a problem. You have groupthink in your company that you're an innovator, you got something good going for you.
Right.
You want everyone in your company going, hey, we're the most innovative company in the world.
Yeah.
And you're going to be that way.
And
you will be as you're thinking.
Nobody says they're defenders. I've not yet to meet a CEO say, no, we're just playing defense. We're trying to just protect the status quo. We're trying to.
What do they say, Steve?
Hedge risk. They want to
Enhance
grow.
shareholder
They
value.
want to expand. They want to do new things.
Maintain their market share.
But their bias is more the next quarter.
Right.
How do you make sure you protect
and yet
that franchise?
there's a gap between personal finance and businesses. Because in personal finance, I believe studies show that the way you get rich is by minimizing your losses, not by taking huge risks, it's by holding on to what you got. And yet you guys are saying that in the corporate sphere, you have to continue to take risk if you want to stop from getting disrupted. Now, Vivek, you actually have a very interesting spin, because as dizzying as all of this revolution has been, having watched, I started covering tech in the early 80s at the Journal, you say we're about to go into overdrive and that the disruption is about to get bigger, broader. Tell us.
All over the place, every industry you can think of, which is technology-based. Start with manufacturing. Even at this conference, we've been going on about how China might still rule the world. China's toast. Their economy is manufacturing-based. Manufacturing, it's become cheaper in the United States as of this year than it is in China. Why? Because of robotics. Robots don't complain. They work 24 hours a day. They cost practically nothing to run. Manufacturing will start, it's trickling back to the United States right now. It'll become a flood 5 to 7 years from now. That disrupts like nothing else. You talk about healthcare. We're worried about Obamacare bankrupting this country. That assumes linear growth in prices. That assumes that technology won't save the day. We talk about medical tests. Well, guess what? If anyone here wants to get an EKG, I can do an EKG for you right now. It doesn't require one of those big machines and those stupid graphs and those. You can do an EKG analysis right now. You can upload your electrocardiograph to a website and have it analyzed for $5. What you would pay your doctor a couple of $100s for, including tests. So look at finance. We've written off Bitcoin as being a bust, but electric digital currencies are now becoming common in other parts of the world. In Kenya, a third of the GDP right now is on M-Pesa. Wait till those technologies come to the United States. I can go on industry after industry after industry. We're talking about major change over the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. Now, Steve, what do you think of that? Because you actually believe, I think you said, that whatever job losses we've had so far in the tech revolution, that there's going to be even bigger ones to come?
There's a risk. I think entrepreneurs need to be, in the country, I think, needs to figure out ways to attack problems in ways that can create value for shareholders and employees, but also try to rebuild what is a hollowed out middle class. And so I think there's a challenge. I agreed to co-chair a commission that's working on this. It's basically, can startups save the American dream? It's about entrepreneurship and middle class. It's actually a really hard problem, but it's something that needs attention. But the broader issue, which I completely agree with Vivek, is we're on the sort of the beginning phase of what I think will be viewed as the third wave of the internet. The first wave, which I played a role in, was the first 15 years or so was just getting people to understand what the internet, getting people connected. And there are a lot of companies, not just companies like AOL, but Cisco and many other companies that were basically built that foundation and got people connected. The second wave, the last 15 years or so, has been companies like Salesforce, but also Google and Facebook and many others that are essentially product service built on top of the internet. And that's created enormous value. This next wave is really taking the internet and really making it integral to every aspect of our lives and disrupting sectors that really need disruption. Things like learning, things like health, things like energy, things like government services. And so we're just at the beginning phase of that. And that's, I think, going to be the next 15 years. And that's going to create enormous opportunity in those sectors. And for consumers, they're going to create enormous benefits in terms of better ways to learn, better ways to stay healthy, better ways to manage chronic disease, things like that. It's this next wave saved, I think it's very exciting. But some of the incumbents in that business, healthcare is 1/6 of our economy, will be challenged. And as Mark was saying, if they rise to the challenge and they say, we want to be part of that future and do it in an aggressive way, not just a kind of dabbling on the fringes way, they have the opportunity to leverage.
Steve, I don't think that the incumbents can do it. I mean, Mark is a visionary, genius, he says all the right things, but his department heads are worried about defending their departments. They don't come to work every morning saying, hey, I've got to reinvent Salesforce. They come to every morning saying, hey, I've got to increase my bonus. I've got to watch my quarterly performance, otherwise he's going to fire me.
So the problem
That's what
is people. Mark, what do you say?
Well, I think about this a little differently, and this is how I think, which is that there are things that are going on in our industry that are very disruptive right now, and one of them, of course, we've been talking about here at this conference now for 15 years, cloud computing, which is that you can build this next generation of corporate infrastructure without buying more software, hardware, or hiring anybody. The second thing is social networks. We now have about 5 billion people on social networks who are able to collaborate and communicate in ways we didn't know was possible, not just LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, but even vertical social networks or geographic specific social networks. That's an incredible trend. The third one is mobility. Vivek touched on it briefly. There's about 2 billion of those smartphones in the world today, the ones with those big screens, but there's about 5 billion total cell phones. Those 5 billion total cell phones are about to get turned into 5 billion smartphones. And once you have a smartphone, the kind of applications you can do are pretty unbelievable. As you know, the video and audio capabilities on these interactive capabilities is dramatic. And you start to look at those three things, and the fourth thing is, Mark Andreessen said it really well when he said, sensors become the peace dividend of the cell phone wars. You got 1 trillion sensors. I mean, these are sensors going into everything. Our clothes, our cars, our homes, even the way that agriculture is. You touched on the agriculture revolution. I think the real agriculture revolution is just about to start with precision agriculture, with the kind of the robotics and the sensors applied to the agriculture industry. And then the fifth revolution that is underway is the revolution in deep learning. That is, we've now seen things with artificial intelligence. Microsoft calls it an AI spring. You saw an incredible article on the cover of the New York Times about software that Google wrote that it was able to watch a huge number of YouTube videos, and the software was able to figure out what a cat was and draw that cat on its own. Okay, so artificial intelligence based on data, that's the fifth revolution. These 5 things are 5 pretty big things, and then they are resulting in this kind of disruption, if you will, of these various industries, because it's when these 5 things come in to the industry, it provides a new way to create or visualize or conceptualize that industry, both the technology and the business model.
Okay.
And a great example of that would be that we've all seen the videos of the Google car, autonomous car going around without the driver, but we don't have that on our streets today. If you're going to Uber outside, you're not going to Uber a Google car.
Right.
But we could all visualize that is possible.
Did you say that the YouTube software watched the videos and was able to draw a cat after watching cats? Because I've been doing that since like age 3, so not that impressed.
We're just catching up to you,
yes,
Dennis.
Exactly. But now the thing, you talked about how often the old infrastructure that enabled a lot of this stuff is just wiped out. And there's a company called TuneIn where you get radio on your iPhone. You can get any of 100,000 different radio stations around the world. Antarctica radio, if you ever want to listen to that, and you can actually put out a program and your own program and get it listened to by any of the other 100 million listeners of Tuned In to your program, even though you have no radio station at all. Yet,
I'm guessing you're on this, is why we're hearing it.
No, not at all. Yet, why is it that the incumbent technologies in media are still doing pretty well, Steve? Why is it that they haven't lost out? Why is it that the internet, instead of new content, is simply sending old content over and over
again? Give it
again?
time.
There have been some media brands that have grown in value in the last 30 years. ESPN is an example. They were strong 30 years ago in the television business. They were very strong also in the digital business, partly because they invested early. They were one of the earliest partners, 20 plus years ago, and they put a big bet on digital. So recognizing that does allow, I agree with the fact that, and my investment firm is called Revolution. We're investing in people and ideas that can change the world and who are attacking existing incumbent large industries with a better way. So obviously I believe in that disruptive theory, but there are occasionally some examples. I would say though, this next wave of entrepreneurship is going to be different than the last wave and require some different skills, and it'll be interesting to see how this develops. That in the last wave, it really was about the technology, about the product, about the network, about the people, about the passion, and that will continue in this third wave. But there's two skills that are going to become more important, two perspectives. One is the role of partnerships, and the other is the role of policy. In this next wave in learning and healthcare, you're not going to be able to go it alone. The skill set of establishing strategic partnerships and creating a network of alliances, which was actually critical in the first wave. AOL wouldn't have been successful unless we got PC companies to build modems in and communications, is going to become more important. The second is policy. That the role of government is going to become more important in these sectors because it is not just the largest regulator, and you can argue there should be less regulation, but there is going to be some regulation in healthcare and transportation. And
well, I think that's how you know that these disruptions are really happening, right? Because when industries get really entrenched, they get all these laws and policies.
Yes, they go after government for protection, don't they?
Kind of answers your first question around more disruption is coming.
But the other aspect around education, healthcare in particular, is not just government as a regulator. The government's the major customer. They spend far more on education, healthcare than anybody else. So if you're going to disrupt those industries, you're going to have to figure out some way to connect to that.
I'm sure
so
government
people
will...
and passion and ideas and platforms are going to still be important, but adding these additional skill sets around partners and policy are going to be defining for the third wave.
Let's get the Viver in on this one. Vivek, is the ESPN toast also?
ESPN probably not, because people will still watch sports. But the way of delivering ESPN, cable, we don't need cable. We don't need AT&T. We don't need Verizon, because if you look at what's happening now, we're talking about setting up Wi-Fi. AT&T and Google are competing to wire up cities. What happens after you wire up cities? You start having Wi-Fi everywhere. What happens if we have Wi-Fi everywhere? We do what we're doing over here. We make calls over Wi-Fi. We do everything over Wi-Fi. We don't need data plans. We don't need cell anymore. So now you're talking about wiping out that industry.
Right.
Cable, why don't we just receive cable over our high-speed internet, our Google Fiber connections?
Okay. You love the fact that in the next decade, by the end of this decade, I think it's projected, another 3 billion people who are not online will get online, will be attached.
That's what Mark said, exactly. We're talking about now an explosive increase. We're going to have these beggars in New Delhi now on the internet tweeting or exchanging videos or accepting money.
But are you guys seeing that extra 3 billion simply, hey, more customers and receivers of stuff? Are you seeing that 3 billion as a source, even though they're in the developing world and they're not educated, and they're poor, as a source of still more innovation?
It depends on whether Mark's people can figure out the fact that there's a market there and whether they can develop apps and other services to sell them. I'm not sure that he can do it. I'm not sure his people here understand that. He's in Silicon Valley. They live in their own bubble, their own ivory tower. They do not understand the rising billions. It's going to be a new set of companies all over the world that start building technology for themselves that now have hundreds of millions of users overnight. As we saw with WhatsApp. WhatsApp is primarily a global company.
But Mark, then can't you just buy those little outfits when they come along and do well? Boom, snatch them up.
Well, if that was your strategy, if that was important to you, if you felt those markets were strategic to you, acquisition is always one way to enter a market.
You've done a lot of those.
What's that?
You've done a lot of those.
We have, and I think that that's important. I think that as you get to a certain size scale as a technology company, it's important to be able to innovate both organically and inorganically, to stay in touch with entrepreneurs. It's a huge part of my job is constantly meeting with and looking at new technology and what's going on. But different markets have different characteristics, and I think a really good example is we heard, from Steve Ballmer recently in a speech that he gave about Microsoft's progress in China. He was lamenting that his China revenue was less than his revenue in the Netherlands, and
That's what happens when they steal software.
Well, I'm just saying different markets have different characteristics, okay?
Yes, that would be a
So
characteristic.
you may say, well, we have to go get XYZ market, but if they're not actually a market that's materially important to your shareholders, you may not want that market.
Mike,
So
look at
you
the
need to
difference
be
between,
you need to be mindful of what is it that you're really trying to achieve. And every company is going to have a different set of goals. And that's a great example where a lot of folks, a lot of my peers, friends, will go to a market, go to a geography and say, oh, we have to do this, but they haven't really thought it through. Now, in my little world that I'm in, which is the software industry, and enterprise software specifically, about 80 to 90% of all enterprise software is sold in approximately 10 countries in the world. Okay? So if you're an enterprise software entrepreneur, let's say you're setting up shop, you've raised capital, you're doing all these things, do you go out and set up, your offices all over the world? Or do you really focus on those 10 countries, or do you really focus on those cities that are really materially important to you in each country?
Okay.
And that really gets back to, what is your intention? What are you trying to achieve? What is your goal?
Okay, Vivek, isn't Mark in danger of focusing on where he's getting his money now and not focusing enough on where he should be getting his money in the future?
What choice does he have? He's right that he has to focus because he can't just expand his sales force. Now, the risk to him is that his customers get decimated. The IT fortress. Right now, workers have better devices than the IT departments give them. They have sophisticated iPads, they download apps, okay, which is better than what IT gives them, it's better than the infrastructure that they have in their businesses.
Yes.
So that accelerates, the enterprise becomes less powerful. Now, Mark is being very smart in focusing on the cloud. They've got strategies in place to leap forward. But the question is, will they be able to figure out everything that's happening around them?
Yet, don't we, as much as we extol this big revolution, Steve, don't we always underestimate how well the incumbents do at, kind of eliminating that advantage of the new guys and holding on to their businesses?
Yeah, they use their size, including trying to influence policy and other kind of things, as a way to kind of protect the status quo as long as they can. Obviously, that's part of the strategy. But I think it's also, we're talking about specific companies and particular sectors. I think it's also we're taking a step back and looking at the country at large. I know there's a lot of people from a lot of countries here, but just focusing on the United States for a while. That first wave of internet companies was pretty well dominated by the United States. The second wave, the United States had the lead, but there are many other companies, including some hugely successful, Alibaba being a recent example, huge successful.
Right.
This third wave, it's a little bit jump ball. And we need to make sure we do take the lead, and some of the issues that we work with Vivek and others on, like immigration reform, are going to be critical. We've seen the globalization of manufacturing, we've seen the globalization of capital, we're now seeing the globalization of entrepreneurship.
Right.
And we need to make sure we have the right regulatory environment, the right investment incentives, make sure it's easy for entrepreneurs, wherever they happen to be, to get access to capital. That's why things like crowdfunding are so important. But we also need to win what is now a global battle for talent. And if we don't do that, we will not lead this next wave.
Good.
And our economy will start stagnating, and we will say, "Whoa, we lost our way." So I think
this is the disaster that the current government has created by keeping the doors closed. We've lost 5 years in fixing skilled immigration in particular. We've held the skilled hostage to the unskilled, and it's led to innovation centers cropping up all over the world. They're now developing the same capabilities as we have, and we're going to find out about it in about 5 years and wake up and say, oh my God, we have all these amazing technologies coming out of New Delhi, out of Beijing, out of Zimbabwe. I mean, God knows where else we're going to have all these innovation centers because we were asleep for the last 5 years.
Well, we used to,
And we have to be, and to be fair, one of the interesting things that we see in that area is we do see that. We've seen some of that happen, but for whatever reason, a lot of those guys, as soon as they kind of get their thing going, they've got a few employees, they've built their prototype, they're excited, they pack their suitcase and they come to where I live in San Francisco and they're moving in. Because it's where the capital is, and it's where the infrastructure is, and the ecosystems to create these next-gen technology companies. And in our city, in San Francisco, we've seen this phenomenal, investment boom. We've seen a dramatic levels of growth, and it's just we're just at the beginning. Steve calls it this kind of the third. What was it? The
third chapter.
Third chapter. And
third wave.
And I think there is a third wave, but I think that the third wave is, we originally saw mainframes really emerge. And that was the first fundamental wave of computing. The second wave of computing was really client-server. It was PCs and networks. This third wave of computing started right around 94, 93, with the internet itself. And this internet is big, and it's playing its hand out all the way through. And it's taking shape in ways that we can imagine. I usually wear a computer on my wrist now, and today I'm wearing 2 computers on my wrist because
you're extremely nerdy.
Yes, and I have, one is kind of keeps track of how many steps and this kind of thing I do every day, and it's also my watch. And the other one, actually, I just got last week, is really cool, has a heart rate monitor built into it, so I don't actually have to touch Vivek's iPhone case. It's automatically connected.
He's disrupted me already.
So you
That's
find your heart rate's at 120. What do you do with that information? Who cares where your heart rate is?
No,
well, actually,
he'll have a digital tutor monitoring an AI system that will monitor his health.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
and
one
send
of
him
the
a message when he has to do something.
Well, who cares? Let me tell you who cares. Your cardiologist cares, and I'll tell you why. You know, all of the cardiologists use something called the Framingham study. That's how they determine the severity of your cardiac disease. But it's a really old study, and it was done with an extremely small group of people. There's never been a large group of people who have been able to be subjected to really look at their heart rate over time. Usually you might have your heart rate checked once a year at a single time slot in your doctor's office. This is going to completely change cardiology.
Good point.
And so one of the things that I'm funding at UCSF is the eHeart study, led by Jeff Olgen, who's our chair of cardiology. And we've put together a program, and you can find out about this on the UCSF website, where we're connecting folks who have cardiac disease with their wearables, these next-gen wearables, all that have these heart rate sensors right underneath them here, which is this very low-cost sensor. And you think about that as a healthcare application, it's unbelievable.
Mark, I wouldn't have had a heart attack if I had that technology. And I would have been sitting on that side of the fence versus this side of the fence.
Well, not if you weighed 300 pounds.
Well, maybe we can get you back. Maybe you should change chairs
I
with
want to
Dennis.
go back to something that Mark said, which I partially agree with, partially disagree with, which is Silicon Valley is awesome. It's the pride of America. It's the envy of the world, and it will continue to be awesome.
Now, you have to say, speaking of someone who lives in Washington, D.C.
Speaking of somebody who lives in Washington, D.C., but spent a lot of time in San Francisco and in the whole valley. And I think it is awesome. And I'm be careful to finish making this thought, because I'm not going to suggest what you first think I'm going to say. 60 years ago, Detroit was Silicon Valley. Detroit was the most innovative entrepreneurial region in the country, arguably the world, when the car was the technology of the time. In the last 60 years, Detroit's lost 60% of its jobs and is now bankrupt because it lost its entrepreneurial mojo. So regions can rise and fall. What is beginning to, and I think Silicon Valley will continue to be strong for all the reasons Mark said. What I think is beginning to happen, both within the country and globally, is this rise of the rest. Yep. And other regions around the country, because it's now easier and cheaper to start companies, and you can access talent, and particularly with crowdfunding, access capital and be part of broader networks. People are starting companies all over the country, indeed all over the world. So I think Silicon Valley will still be the hottest, even 10 years from now, the hottest region.
That's
but
a very key
broaden
point.
out. And
the rise, I like that phrase, the rise of the rest. And yet, Vivek, I was talking to a tech CEO the other day who's from another country, those companies technically based here, and he said, you know what? Silicon Valley doesn't even matter anymore. You don't even need a center of development there because it is global. What do you say?
Dennis, you can get information. Anyone, anywhere has access to the same information right now. You can network with anyone, anywhere. These folks, I follow them on Twitter, and they share their ideas. Steve is, wherever he is, he's tweeting about what he's doing, what his ideas are. When people tweet to him, ask him questions, he responds to them. It was unimaginable a decade ago that you could access Steve Case. I mean, so now, he also blogs.
Yes.
Mark blogs and writes. There are videos available of them. You have access to gurus like this all over the world. So you don't have to be here to access them.
Let's see if we can get a quick opinion from each of you on what you think the next big platform that now exists could be the one that gets disrupted the most in the next few years. I was talking to a tech exec the other day who said, that $2 billion acquisition Facebook did of Oculus, the virtual reality goggles company that hasn't sold a product yet. He said that's a $2 billion bet on the next multi-trillion-dollar platform. And then he says the smartphone is over. It's already saturated and basically done with. Is the smartphone platform, Mark, the next one to get disrupted big?
No, we're still at the beginning of the smartphone revolution.
Oh.
And
I agree with that, by the way.
You know, we're at the beginning of that, and we are also at the beginning of wearables and all these things. And I think that the great innovations in those areas we're actually still going to see.
Steve, is he underestimating the threat to the smartphone platform?
No, I think there's still a lot of legs there and still a lot of innovation there. And that indeed is one of the platforms that will power the reimagination, reinvention of healthcare and other, for exactly what Mark mentioned. But I also think it's worth looking at Facebook, which is obviously a tremendous success story. What they did with Oculus, and I believe also with WhatsApp, actually, I perceive as more defensive than offensive. I saw that. Well, when we were public
Instagram.
in 1992, a company was worth $70 million. 8 years later, it was worth $150 billion. And we acquired companies like Netscape and many other companies, partly because we wanted to be positioned strategically for the future, but we also wanted to make sure we were kind of protecting our flank. And I think part of the reason Facebook paid so much for WhatsApp is because they're saying, well, our market cap is, whatever it is, $170 billion. We're going to give 10% of our company to these guys because these guys could become us guys down the road. So it actually was more of a defensive move than an offensive move.
But are all three of you guys underestimating the threat to smartphones? Because if the smartphone platform is so robust and has so much growth in there, how come Samsung and Apple and so many others are working so hard on a watch? Why would you bother with that if you can keep going for a smartphone?
The smartphone is going to get cheaper and cheaper. I don't think any of us defended Apple or Samsung. These devices are going to cost $20 or $30 within 3 or 4 years.
That would sound disrupted to me then.
It is disrupted. The makers are going to be disrupted. The technology is not going to be disrupted. This technology is going to be everywhere. The disruption is going to happen when we have your glasses now having a display in them or having it embedded in your retina.
Or I think
why do we need displays? Why don't we have them embedded in us?
And also, your watch is going to start ringing, because you have twinning technology coming out this year, where AT&T is going to be able to have you have a single number that's going to be able to run on multiple cell phones, and you've got cell phone on a chip that's going to be right here inside your watch. Your phone is going to ring. It's going to be your same number as your smartphone. You forgot your smartphone at home, no problem. Your watch is going to ring. You take the call on your Bluetooth. It's all good. But this is a different form factor. That's a different form factor. You can do different types of applications. I think the phone is the most exciting new platform that's come along in a long time. And not to say that these aren't, but we haven't seen a really great one yet. I've been spending the last few years just trying to rewrite all of Salesforce's core platform for the phone, because I think the phone is going to be a huge driver going forward.
All right.
I think you also need to look at the difference between this arc of evolution of platforms like the smartphone and specific companies. A decade ago, the dominant companies in the cell business were Motorola, Nokia, BlackBerry. All three have had a difficult period of time. The leaders now would be Apple and Google with Android.
And they could disappear as well. We could have a completely new generation of companies coming about.
Probably will.
They're developing new types of tablet-like platforms.
Actually, you're moving us into a good section here. I wanted to talk about the surfers of this wave versus those who get swept away by it and wiped out by it. And in terms of those who do get disrupted, is there anything they could have done, or does it just turn out that it's inevitable and your time has passed? Nothing the horse, the maker of the buggy whip for horses, nothing he could have done really to innovate for the car age. So what do we think about incumbents and how they've done? Is there anything that AOL Time Warner could have done to stop all the things that went wrong?
Yeah, no, I think it's like 15 years ago. I don't want to go back there. But yeah, they muddled through. My view is either should integrate and run it as one company and leverage the assets and drive convergence, or break it into independent companies. Eventually, they broke it into independent companies, and that's created ultimately more value. I think if you executed well on the convergence integration strategy, that had the potential for more value, but it was harder. But I think in terms of this broader question, I think education is one of the places to watch what happens. Right now, the conventional wisdom, particularly in Silicon Valley, is that that education will move to the cloud, learning will move to the cloud, and that traditional colleges and universities are fundamentally threatened by technology and business models and so forth. And there will be some of that. But there are 20,000 colleges and universities with 100 million students, and that's where all the money is. So the question is, how do colleges embrace active learning and new digital technologies to augment what happens in the cloud? We backed a company called Echo 360 that just does this with 700 universities, a couple million students right now, and they're trying to take these colleges and universities, instead of presuming they're destined to be in the dust heap of history, dustbin of history, which is crazy, they're trying to figure out ways to help them migrate into the future to create better learning experience with better outcomes, more conveniently at lower cost for 100 million students. So that's an example of embracing embracing these partnerships and trying to do something in a more of a hybrid kind of way.
Mark, give us your blunt assessment on another incumbent and its efforts to avoid getting disrupted, Microsoft. The fact that 10 years later, Microsoft stock was all kind of flat, and yet it still held on to an 85% or so share of the PC market and operating systems. Is that a success for Microsoft? Did it do a good job of getting less disrupted? Or is it a failure for Microsoft that it didn't build some entirely new businesses?
Well, I think that if you're a Microsoft shareholder over the last 10 years, you view it as a failure. So, if you look at Microsoft's stock price over Steve Ballmer's tenure, it was not, something that he's going to put as #1 on his resume. The reason why is because they just kept their mantras too long. You basically have a mantra. One of their mantras is Windows everywhere. If you've been in the industry a long time, that was something that came from Bill Gates, and that was very important to them. But they didn't get rid of that mantra fast enough. They lost their beginner's mind to kind of start this again. And you can't just keep repeating these mantras over and over again for 10 or 20 years if the world hasn't changed.
Do you guys still say, Salesforce.com, the end of software? Are you clinging to that mantra too long?
We didn't use it in this panel. And to be honest with you, we have dropped that positioning as the world has moved more to the cloud and mainstream, and we're more about run your business from your phone right now. That's that's our message. When we started, there was no phones.
No.
There was no iPhone.
Barely
there were phones.
Right, no smartphone, right.
We weren't
There's only one company that I know of that is acting like its life is in danger. That's Google. They're doing these moonshots. If you look at what they're doing, you have Ray Kurzweil re-engineering the brain. They're trying to figure out how it works, why it works. They're buying robotics companies. They're building drones. They're now doing self-driving cars. All of these, they're doing Google Loon, Google Fiber, all of these moonshots. They don't know which one is going to succeed.
But okay, I love the whole Google story, love the innovation, but 95% of Google's revenue is from selling ads.
Because they know that
Google
could disappear
sell
tomorrow.
more ads and sell better targeted ads.
They don't know what's
going to that stuff help them sell more ads? Is there anyone here who thinks that Google, rather than a carefully crafted strategy, is just doing food fight and seeing what sticks?
Well, I think strategically it's a difficult challenge for us because there's such dominance in that space, and the transition to mobile has been more difficult. The dollars are not in the print world, and you started, and they were sort of trading in print dollars or television dollars for digital dollars. A similar transition is the transition in terms of advertising on mobile. You're getting less monetization, and as people spend more time, there is risk to Google. There are two choices there. One is to double down and focus obsessively on making sure you make that transition to mobile as seamless as you can, and that you try to collect as much money as you can.
That's Microsoft.
The other is to say, we'll do the best job we can there, but we better put some more planes in the air, these moonshots, so we have some new businesses, and they did that very successfully with Android as one example. And it's a more difficult strategy to execute, but it helps kind of hedge the risk of having all your eggs in one basket. However, there are many companies that try to do that. They lose focus, and they actually accelerate the loss of their core. So it's a tricky balance.
That's why you have Sergey versus Larry, one running the company, the other innovator now doing these moonshots, and it works out very well.
But this point you just said where they could overreact, or whatever word you use there, America Online did a very bold thing. They had 20 million people paying $20 a month for online, and then they suddenly said, you know what? We're going to give you guys online access, internet access, free of charge. And basically were willing to do to themselves what rivals were trying to do anyway. Did they move too early? Should they not have done that?
Well, it's actually not what happened. But
don't let the facts get away with a good story.
We did in the mid-'90s decide, initially when we started, in 1985 when we started, it was actually illegal to connect a commercial service to the internet.
Before the breakup of AT&T?
It wasn't until 1991 it was after the breakup of AT&T, but 1991 was when the internet was commercialized. Up until then, it had to be an educational institution or a government agency to use the internet. So for the first 5 or 6 years, we had to build everything. When the internet was opening up and getting commercialized, we said we want to not just do our own thing, kind of this walled garden strategy, some call it. We wanted to be basically an on-ramp to the internet. So it was the internet and a whole lot more, including some things, including our communications features like chat and messaging and instant messaging, things like that. So it was better than the internet. So we did embrace the idea and say, rather than be worried about this, let's try to co-opt this. And that drove our growth. And that's why we went from 1 million customers. It took us 9 years to get 1 million customers. 9 years later, we had 25 million customers because we embraced the internet and saw it as an opportunity, not a threat.
Right. Mark, you got anything on this?
Well, I think that you kind of hear it, and I've said it, which is I think when you're a leader, you're an innovator, you're creating something new. Now you have some success, you're moving on Now you're ready to kind of get to the next level. Are you going to acquire it? Are you incubating it? Are you going to be that innovator again? The ones who are getting in trouble are the ones who lose that beginner's mind.
Right.
If you can really keep that, if you can hold on, I think you can transcend a lot of these challenges. But
are you doing any moonshots,
some great
Mark? Are you doing
companies.
any grand moonshots? Are you taking those big risks?
Are we taking big risks? Well, we're taking big risks in terms of we're the fastest growing enterprise software company in the world. We delivered
are you doing moonshots? Anything radically different?
That's more of the same, he said.
We are, well, it's actually, you know, our strategy has been very simple, which is number one, we started with our Salesforce automation product, and we added a customer service product where we've moved into marketing very aggressively. We believe that as this world that we see emerges with sensors and devices and all these things that are happening, we're going to move to a one-to-one consumer marketing area. That's why we made a significant acquisition last year. That's a third line of business. We built a platform for building all these types of applications.
What's next?
On top of that. And, you know, I'm not going to give you, you know, the fifth playbook, but if you come to my Dreamforce conference in October, you can check it out there.
Well, if you invite us, we will come. But Vivek, let me ask you a question. If you owned Salesforce.com shares today, would you sell them?
I would, if I owned Salesforce, I would make him the CTO. I would get him back into the visionary role versus the CEO role, because you need someone like him now driving the company forward and reinventing it as it's in flight.
But see, the thing is, when you're a total control freak, you're not going to really do that. What do you say, Mark?
I think I've done all right as CEO of Vivek. I think my results speak for themselves.
But you're the incumbent now. That's what the problem is, that you don't have control over the rest of the company.
No, I think that you underestimate the importance of being the CEO of a technology company. I think Steve could probably speak to this as well. You have to be the leader. You have to take responsibility for all the operational and visionary aspects. You have to have the ability to do both. And that's what a technology CEO does. And you can't say, oh, somebody else is going to do vision. That's why CEOs fail. CEOs fail if they execute what you just said. Oh, I'm going to delegate innovation. I'm going to delegate that next thing. I'm going to delegate to your words.
Look at Sergey and Larry.
Hold on.
They did it right. I mean,
hold on. I'm going to delegate that moonshot. Okay, you can't do that. And now that you just brought those guys in, you have to look at one who really is the person who's involved, Larry Page. He is the operator and he is the innovator. He's both. If you know him, things like Android, robotics, these things, their big initiatives are coming from him and his leadership. And so to be a great leader in the technology industry and to be somebody who can build a multi-billion-dollar company, to be able to deliver, you know, significant market share against entrenched competitors, you have to have operational capability and innovation capability.
I agree with you, by the way.
And I just want to make it clear, because I just don't want all of a sudden some CEO to go out there and say, oh, I'm going to be I heard Vivek and I'm going to be the innovator. I don't think Carl
Icahn is here, so we're safe.
Okay. I think it's also, with large companies, when they usually have a sense of where the market's going. They have teams of people that say, this is going to happen. The mistake is not having some sense of that. The mistake is not putting enough resources against that initiative and the best people against that initiative. So some of the moonshot strategy with Google, or similar what Amazon's done, is when they identify a problem or an opportunity, they attack it with vigor. And
all right.
Sort of what your new board member used to be on the AOL board, Colin Powell, talked, the Powell doctrine was an overwhelming force. If you attack and play to win. Big companies dabble all too often.
Yes.
When they attack and play to win, you've seen this with Google, you've seen this with Amazon, you've seen it in other companies. It has to be a focused, energetic, resource-intensive battle that's worth fighting, and you fight that battle to prevail, not just have some people doing some things around the fringes.
But the dilemma, I think Mark had alluded to it earlier, it's hard to fight a two-front war. It's hard to keep growing your main business as you're then taking some of your very best people who help grow your main business and trying to do this new stuff that hasn't come in yet. Now, we're getting down to only about 8 minutes or so to go. This is going very well, and unless you guys want to go in another direction.
That's why very, very, very few companies in the history of our industry have ever been able to do that successfully.
Yes, right. But I was about to say something here. So for now, let's look at what.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But what kind of obstacles and hazards could get in the way of this next huge tech revolution we're talking about? That's going to be great things. It's going to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. It's going to unlock all kinds of. What could get in the way? First of all, let's start with government and regulation. Is that an obstacle, or is that something that could
Dennis,
work well?
you're assuming that the U.S. has a monopoly on innovation. It doesn't. The same advances that are happening here are happening everywhere. The same sensors that Mark talked about are now available everywhere. The entrepreneurship that Steve talked about is happening everywhere.
Then why do you say that this next revolution will benefit the U.S. more than it benefits everywhere else?
Because it is bringing manufacturing back to us. We're now becoming self-sufficient in energy. We're now going to have solar energy now driving us. We benefit because it's emanating from here, and ultimately we become more independent and we rise faster. We're able to innovate faster than any other country is. Despite the fact we're dumb in immigration, the fact is that people still want to come here because the networks are here, the money is here, the power is here, the ability to distribute and make things happen is here. The magic happens in America still.
The government, it can be an enabler, but it also can do stupid things that undermine the ability for us to continue to have our lead. And the talent issue around immigration is one, making sure there are the right access to capital for entrepreneurs and incentives to invest in startups, things like that important. The regulatory climate in some sectors
Steve,
of the
we
economy.
need less government, not more government. I know you're in D.C., but we need government to get out of the way completely.
That's my point on regulation.
Right.
How do you make sure it's easier to start these businesses here? But if we don't attack this problem and say that we have to take proactive steps to make sure we remain the most innovative entrepreneurial nation, are the best place people want to come, the best place investors want to invest, and make it easier to start and scale businesses, we will lose our lead, and some of these industries will end up, the center of gravity will be in other parts of the world.
Right. And guys, take a look at the page 1 story in the Journal today about Pfizer doing a big AstraZeneca $100 billion merger, and one thing driving it is it will relocate from New Jersey overseas, where it will then pay a total of $1 billion less in taxes because the U.S. tax policy is so onerous compared to other markets. Mark, do you have another obstacle? What, for example, is there any kind of consumer obstacle here? Will consumers at some point just get tired of all this endless upgrades? Because, if you look at the desktop computer market or the laptop computer market, when the tech guys started upgrading, more and more customers stopped going along. What do you say, Mark?
More upgrades coming.
Yes.
I mean, upgrades are more seamless than ever before. I don't think there's any. I think that we have a pretty incredible future coming. I think there's going to be a lot of obstacles. We've touched on some of those. Jobs are definitely one of them. Privacy, security. These are going to be major transitions, I would say, for individuals and for organizations. And but we're going to see some pretty incredible things in our lifetime, and a lot of them, we've talked about at this conference. Things like precision medicine are going to be aided by and created by all the things that we talked about here at this panel.
What about the notion of lopsided valuations? When you see Facebook paid $19 billion in monopoly money, Facebook shares, for this WhatsApp, and do you ever wonder whether prices getting out of control? Is that an obstacle?
Yeah, some prices are, some valuations are frothy, no question. I wouldn't say it's across the board, and certain sectors and even certain regions tend to have different valuations than other sectors and other kind of regions. But yeah, there are definitely some companies that are fully, if not frothily, valued, and the market will correct itself over time. It always does.
Okay, and guys, now we're getting ready for our dismount. And maybe each of you say something really smart in conclusion, overarching, to kind of take our people out of here. And so, Vivek, you're the ivory tower guy. Why don't we start with you?
This is the most innovative period in human history when we can set the stage for solving humanity's grand challenges. I'm talking about the things we dreamed about, solving the problems of hunger, solving the problems of disease and health, now having unlimited food, being able to 3D print buildings, being able to 3D print any devices we want. The stuff we watched on science fiction is not that far off. We're talking about 10, 20 years, that time frame. And the challenge then becomes, we're doing all these great things, all these amazing things happen. What about the dark side of it? With every good, there's a bad. Technology is advancing exponentially. Is humanity advancing exponentially? I don't know, because we're creating a super rich class. We're creating all sorts of other problems in society. I don't know if we can evolve fast enough, but the only thing constant is that the change is happening. If we stop it in the United States, it'll happen worldwide, and we will lose.
Okay, wait, just one follow-up. Did you say 3D printing? You didn't say buildings and
buildings, 3D
entire
printing
buildings?
houses.
Okay, never happened, my friend. Never. Okay, Steve Case. Steve, go ahead.
Chinese are already doing it, my friend. And in LA, go to the university here, they're 3D building buildings.
Liar, pants on fire.
Google it.
I share Vivek's enthusiasm about the future and the opportunities. And you started at the beginning saying if we had too much disruption. We've had a lot of disruption in certain sectors, including your world of media and communication.
Yeah.
We have not had enough disruption in other areas like health and learning, and that's going to be this next wave. But it's a different wave. It's a different skill set. It's going to, as I said, require different kinds of ways to think about building and scaling companies. And the United States needs to make sure it takes action quickly, including on immigration. I think there's an opportunity to pass immigration reform this summer. And if we don't pass it in the next 3 months, I don't think we'll pass it in the next 3 years. If we don't pass it in the next 3 years, exactly what Vivek said would happen. The development of other regions, other parts of the world, you won't be able to put the genie back in the bottle, and we will run the risk of losing our lead as the most innovative entrepreneurial nation.
Okay.
So it's our game to lose, but right now, the way we're playing it, there's a risk of losing.
All right.
So we need to change course.
Mark, finish us up with a flourish.
I would say that, you know, behind every tweet, behind every Facebook post, behind every web page, behind every one of these wearables, behind every smartphone, don't forget there is a human being, or like we like to call them at Salesforce, a customer. So don't count our customer relationship management providers out quite yet.
By the way, I would buy your stock right now. For the next year or two, you're in great shape.
All right.
After that, I can't predict.
Okay,
I think we're
thanks.
going to end it on an accord here. Man, 3 fantastic panelists who needed no moderator at all. If you'll just please join me in a little bit of applause. All right. Thank you very much for being with us. Our work here is done.